Shalom. The sin of generalizing the Holocaust. Edward Rothstein, who is a critic for the New York Times, wrote a really interesting article, and I wanted to bring it to your attention. I'm recording this the weekend in which the Jewish people commemorate the Holocaust in 2011. And what he talks about how is in virtually all of the Holocaust museums, except for Yad Vashem in Jerusalem and the Holocaust Museum in Washington, all of the other Holocaust museums have broadened the theme of the Holocaust to talk about genocides and problems and discrimination and bullying, as if the major problem in the Holocaust was intolerance. He talks about, for example, in the famous museum, whether you go to Los Angeles or and the Museum of Intolerance is the main one he talks about, the Skokie New Museum, many of the museums, and this is the major theme. For example, in the Museum of Tolerance, before you get into the main exhibit about the Holocaust, you have to pass through all of these other exhibits which talk about gay bashing and hate crimes. Now, not that those things are not important and not significant, but what Rothstein basically is trying to make the point in this very interesting New York Times piece from Saturday, April 30th, is the idea that the Holocaust is really unique and you completely water down history and miss the point and miss the opportunity to prevent another Holocaust if this is the attitude you take about the Holocaust museums. They've made a big mistake in doing this. Maybe they think that the only way that people can possibly absorb the lessons of the Holocaust is to personalize it, and so they broaden the theme so much that it becomes all about nothing. So he has a sentence where he says it's worth taking a closer look at this approach to mass murder. And he says no Holocaust museum, it seems, can completely exist without invoking the Rwandan, Darfur, Cambodian messes, problems, challenges, horrors that those people experienced. He does make the point that Yad Vashem and the Holocaust Museum in Washington have remained relatively immune to this, and they but the other museums are making the following major point about the Holocaust. We should all get along, become politically active, and be very considerate of our neighbors. If not, the differences between hate crimes and the Holocaust, between bullying and Buchenwald, are just a matter of degree. And Rothstein says, as a matter of history, this is laughable. Yet we seem willing to accept this is in the case of the Holocaust. An exhibition must allude to all the other forms of genocide and must offer broad lessons about tolerance. Because people think the major question is, couldn't this all have been prevented if we simply were more tolerant? And part of that has been applied to one of the things that Simon Wiesenthal said, which was that 11 million people died in the camps. And his idea was, which is a complete lie, his idea was that if you broaden it to include non-Jews, they'll be more sympathetic to the Jews. Well, actually, the statistics are that perhaps 500,000 non-Jews died in the camps. But that's not even the point. The point is that was specifically targeted at Jews. I mean, sure, there were a few other small groups, but the main focus of the most advanced country in the world, using all of its machinery, was to target and kill all the Jews of Europe and eventually the Jews of the whole world. Now, when these other massacres occurred, they were killed person by person with machetes and rifles. This was a mass operation by the German government with the aiding and abetting of people all over Europe, to mass murder the Jews. It's a completely different in-kind, and if you miss that lesson, you miss the whole point of it. Rothstein writes, and the deeper one looks at the Holocaust itself, the more unusual its historical circumstances become. The cause of these mass killings was not intolerance, but something else scarcely understood. You have to understand the nature of the hatred of Jews, the blindness of the Germans, and most Europeans, the ambitions of Hitler, which he made so explicit, and then the complicity of those people once they were explicit. And he said the killings were not in the context of war over contested terrain, as many of the other killings were. They often took precedence over the waging of war. Hitler diverted precious resources from the military campaign specifically to kill Jews. And so how central is intolerance to genocide anyway, he says? Many intolerant societies do not set up bureaucratic offices to supervise efficient mass murder. And so I think we need to think carefully about the direction of all of these Holocaust museums, trying to broaden the message, especially on the day when we commemorate the Holocaust, to understand that it was unique in human history. It was the targeted effort to massacre and murder and destroy all of Judaism and all of the Jews by the most efficient powerful nation on earth at the time. And that is the lesson that we have to remember as we work to stop future Holocausts. And this was specifically targeted at the Jews after thousands of years of European anti-Semitism.